Okay, unfortunately, ran out of memory on the memory card, but there's only a little bit left on this one. We'd already calculated the values of 1 over x. And now we plot the points. Okay, -2, -1/2. Well, there's -2, there's -1/2, so -2, -1/2 gives us a point about here. -1, -1, there's -1, there's -1. Come down, come across, there's our point. -1/2, -2, well, there's -1/2. We come down here, we come across from y equals -2, we get a point here. We do not plot a point for x equals 0 because the y quantity is undefined. 1 over 0 is undefined. Once more, how many zeros does it take to make 1? You can't do it. 1 divided by 0 cannot be defined. So we don't plot any point at all for x equals 0. Okay, then we go to x equals 1/2. Well, when x equals 1/2, y equals 2. So we get this point. Now somehow we went from here all the way up to here. That doesn't mean we're going to try to connect this point to this one when we draw our curve. Reason is we don't connect across a point where a function is undefined. Okay? Unless we do a lot of extra work, and a lot of extra work will tell us that that would not be accurate. The function doesn't just turn around and start climbing at this point. I'll explain a little more about that, but we just don't connect from the left-hand side of the y-axis to the right-hand side because the y-axis is the axis where x equals 0. The function is undefined here. We can't cross that axis. There's no point on that axis. And there's no point that leads in the direction from this point to this point. There's no line, no curve that leads from the direction here to the direction here. This function is just split into two halves, and they don't meet, and they don't articulate with each other. Anyhow, so we take then 1, 1, we get this point, 2, 1/2, we get this point, sketch this curve, and we sketch this curve. Okay, we don't attempt to connect from left to right. I want to emphasize that because I really don't want to see anybody doing that. Gives you a distorted picture of the function and messes you up all over the place and fails to show you what you need to understand. And one thing you need to understand, I'll just go a little beyond just graphing this. What if you went to -1/4? Well, 1 over -1/4 multiplied by the reciprocal, it shouldn't be too hard to understand that you're going to get 4, -4. So this graph is going to go twice as slow, down to -4. Well then, what if you go twice as close to 0 as 1/4, -1/4, you get -1/8. The reciprocal of that is -8. You're going to go twice as far down. There's no limit to how far you're going to go down. You're going to get a vertical asymptote where this thing just keeps going down faster and faster as you approach the y-axis. And similarly on this side, if you approach from this side, from the positive toward 0, it's going to go up faster and faster, and you're going to have what's called a vertical asymptote. And if you try to connect any point over here to any point over here, you're going to miss that. And that's extremely important. Okay, well anyhow, that's 3 of your 5 most basic functions, okay? The other 2 are x cubed, which if you can do x squared, you can do, okay? And 1 over x squared. Now if you can do 1 over x, I'm confident that you can do 1 over x squared. You just have to remember division means multiply by the reciprocal, okay? Okay, well very good. So I'm not going to illustrate those. I'm just going to turn you loose on those graphs. But of course there are other videos that I'll refer you to where you can see those if you need them and where you can kind of check yourself. Actually, I will say that the general form of the 1 over x squared graph is pretty much like this. I think you can work that out. And the x cubed graph looks a lot like the x squared graph, except it's kind of a little flatter toward the origin. Looks a lot like the x squared graph for positive x, but of course when you cube a negative number, you get a negative number. So it looks a lot like this, Matter of fact, it has exactly the same shape as this, but turned upside down like this. Okay? So the x cubed graph will end up looking like this. And you also have the absolute value of x graph, and hopefully you'll be able to figure out, just by plugging in the numbers, that that graph is going to look like this. Something like